Hello again, my DIY loving friends. I'm Sarah, and this is Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together, and where we turn budget finds into million-dollar decor. Today, we're diving into more Dollar Tree magic to transform your home for fall. Get ready to impress your guests without breaking the bank. So what are we waiting for? Let's go DIY together. For this DIY, I've got this glass vase lying around. It's one I got from a flower delivery, but I do know that Dollar Tree has similar glass vases as well. I've got this plastic linkable chain for Halloween from Dollar Tree. This one is glow in the dark, so it's a light color to begin with, and the links come apart. So I am sizing it to be just long enough to go from one side of my vase to the other. I'm going to take both outside and spray paint them with this Rust-Oleum paint and primer in flat white, which I'll link for you below. Once the white pieces are dry, I'm going to take them outside again and spray paint them with this Rust-Oleum stone texture spray in the bleached stone shade, and I will link that for you below as well. Once the texture spray is dry, I am using a mixture of water and folk art antique wax, which I will link for you below, and with a tiny brush, I sparingly paint on some of the diluted wax onto the link sections of each chain link, and then add a bit more along the inner and the outer seams of each link to give the links a little bit of an aged or a rusty, antique-y kind of look, in addition to the texture that we just sprayed on. And in some cases, I use my fingers to blend out the wax for a more natural look, and I'm going to do this for all of the links. With the chain adequately antiqued and distressed, I grab a piece of kitchen sponge and lightly begin sponge painting some of the watered down wax onto the textured vase, just trying to darken the color and give it a little more of an aged and a dirty look to complement that chain link. I build up that color in layers all around the entire outside of the vase until I get the color that I am looking for. Once that antique wax is dry, I simply open the link on each end of my chain and slide it over the top edge of the vase, as you see me doing right here. And this is my textured and antiqued chain link vase, and I really think this vase looks so much more high-end than just a free glass vase and a glow-in-the-dark Dollar Tree plastic chain. Just a great example of how a little bit of paint and creativity can totally transform nothing into something. For this DIY, we're back with more brown tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree because I know you guys wanted more. I'm using this Beacon 3-in-1 craft glue, which I will link for you below, but you can use the Dollar Tree Super Glue wood glue for this as well. So for this project, we're going to be using a total of 72 of these brown blocks. We're making them into two different kinds of squares, groups of 4 in the squares. We're making flat squares as well as making tall squares, as you can see me doing right here. First, we're going to be making the flat squares, and I am making 10 of these 4-block flat squares, as you can see me doing right here. Then I make 10 more of the 4-block squares, but these are the tall, skinny side up squares. Now, I made 10 of these, but I really only needed 8 of these tall squares, so we still only used 72 blocks in total. To assemble these squares into tower-shaped legs, I start with a flat square on the bottom, and then I center a tall square right on top of that one, followed by a flat square centered on top of the tall one, then another tall square centered on top of the flat square. And I'm going to do this alternating until I've used 5 of the flat squares and 4 of the tall squares to make this little tower-shaped leg. I repeat that to make a second tower shape, and I've used a total of 10 flat squares and 8 tall squares. And for those of you keeping track at home, that's a grand total of 72 blocks. Next, I had a piece of scrap balsa wood left over from a Dollar Tree blank sign, and I used a box cutter to cut 2 3-inch squares of this balsa wood, which I then painted the squares brown to match the blocks using this apple barrel melted chocolate color paint, which I will link for you below, and then I put them aside to dry. I had this bamboo cutting board from Dollar Tree, and this one was painted from another project, so to match my wood squares and my blocks, I painted the top of the previously painted cutting board with some of that same apple barrel melted chocolate paint, so it would match, and I set that cutting board aside to fully dry. Once dry, I glued the bottom of one of my block towers to the center of one of those 3-inch balsa wood squares. And then I repeated that a second time with the other Jenga block tower. I turned my cutting board upside down and using some loose Jenga blocks on all the sides, just as some spacers, I centered the 2 block towers onto the back of the cutting board as legs. And then I just glued them in place with some more of that Beacon craft glue. And again, you can use the Dollar Tree super glue wood glue to do this if you prefer. And this is my brown Jenga block riser. I love this very sturdy riser, which is fairly strong and very functional as well. And just another amazing brown tumbling tower block DIY that I can share with you. And full disclosure, maybe it's just me, but I can't help seeing Big Bird legs, like Big Bird from Sesame Street here on this riser. It's like I see it and now I can't unsee it, or maybe I'm just crazy, I don't know. Let me know if you can see it too. For this DIY, I've got this older plastic skull from Dollar Tree, and it's got a really stubborn label. Don't you just hate that? Why, Dollar Tree, why? Anyway, I eventually remove that label. I got this large roll of gold plastic spikes. I got it on Amazon and I'll link them for you below. They were a really good deal, but I just really don't like that gold color. It's really yellow. So I decided to paint over that. I cut a long strip of the roll with 3 spikes going across, and then I'm using some hot glue to attach the strip to the middle of the skull going down toward the back, kind of like a mohawk. I take the skull with the spikes attached outside and spray paint it using this Rust-Oleum paint and primer in flat black, which I will link for you below. Once the black paint dried, I have this rub and buff in the color Grecian Gold, and I will link that for you below. I'm using a tiny brush, and to begin with, I paint the gold into the eye socket indentations, both of those eye sockets, and then into the indented little nose areas on the front, and then finally, I paint all of the teeth, first on the top, and then the teeth on the bottom with that rub and buff as well. And then as a little bit of an accent, I also use the rub and buff on that tiny brush to fill in some of the cracks on the skull, on the sides of the head, as well as around the nose and the cheek and chin areas, and the areas around the mouth, just for some added depth and dimension. And this is my black tone-on-tone spiked skull. Granted, it's a skull and it works for spooky Halloween decor, but I also think this black and gold skull is really cool for some more edgy kind of home decor. It's not for everyone, but I honestly enjoy some edgy accents in my home. They really add some serious individuality to your sense of style, and I am all for that. Thanks for joining me on this high-end fall decor adventure. If you love these Dollar Tree DIYs, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Medicated Housewife DIY for more budget-friendly home transformations. Let me know in the comments which DIY was your favorite and why. You know I love hearing from all of you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, remember that together we're making the world a more beautiful place, one DIY at a time.